What we're having a look at in this video is where there's a vehicle in the lane ahead of you that has stopped and then backs up or reverses into you. In the animation, we see one reason that would give rise to such a situation, and in each of the successive real-life clips, we'll have a look at a different scenario that would result in a vehicle backing up or reversing into us. Let's have a look at the animation. What has happened here is that the driver of the yellow van had realized that he had missed his turning or the entrance, slowed down, stopped, and then immediately backed up without properly checking his rear view mirror to ensure that there were no vehicles behind him. And so the driver of the red vehicle hadn't left enough of a buffer zone between himself and the van in order to be able to allow the van driver to back up without posing any danger, or alternatively to take an escape route. When we stop behind another vehicle, we need to always ensure that we've got enough of a gap between ourselves and the vehicle ahead so that if that vehicle starts reversing, that the vehicle has enough of a gap to move into, or that there's enough of a gap for us to be able to take an escape route. We don't want to be so close that we're then trapped in a situation that we've got no way out of. The real-life clip is depicting what we've just seen in the animation. The van driver has realized that he's slightly past the entrance that he needs to turn into, backs up without checking his rear view mirror, and collides with the camera. In this next real-life clip, what's happened is that the vehicle has taken a wrong turning up ahead, realizes it, stops, and then tries to reverse, obviously to come back to the intersection and take the correct route. The camera has come around the corner, having seen this vehicle over here, and doesn't allow enough of a gap again for this vehicle to be able to back up. So one can't just assume if we take the corner and we stop now behind the vehicle that the driver would have seen us. Perhaps the driver, after turning into the wrong lane, checked the rear view mirror, didn't see any vehicles, thought it's safe now to start reversing. In the meantime, we've come around the corner and we now in the path of that vehicle that's reversing. In this next real-life clip, what's happened is there's an altercation or perhaps a bit of road rage between these two drivers. This driver climbs out of his vehicle. This driver is in a bit of a panic when he sees this driver climbing out of his vehicle and tries to escape by reversing. As he does so in such a panic state, he reverses straight into the camera. So where you see some sort of friction that's happening between drivers on the road, it's best to try and steer clear. Allow them enough of a gap, just in case a situation like this arises and you land up as one of the victims. In this next real-life clip, what's happened is we've got a truck that stopped on an incline here. I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but you can see it's icy and snowy conditions, so the road is somewhat slippery. Because of the incline, this vehicle now starts sliding backwards, and so if we haven't allowed enough of a gap, the vehicle would start bearing down on us till it eventually impacts us. Fortunately for the camera, he's allowed enough of a gap here, so he was able to reverse successfully. Obviously, he would have needed to have checked his rear view mirror to make sure that he's got enough of a gap behind him, but successfully manages to get out the way. So that previous real-life clip was not a scenario that we often come across. What we're having a look at here is perhaps a little bit more of a common scenario. So we've got a vehicle that tries to do a U-turn through the intersection here, which is never a good idea. So I do have a separate page on the website that has a look at U-turns in the context of intersections and why it's not a good idea. I'll put a link to that page and that video in the description section of this video below. But notice what happens in the vehicle doing a U-turn. So realizes that the turn is too tight, tries to reverse to give himself space, and reverses into another vehicle. This next real-life clip is a much more common scenario, and that's where the vehicle ahead of us actually overshoots the stop street or the stop line, finds himself now in the lane that's running adjacent or through the intersection, and so actually poses somewhat of a blockage to any vehicles that are trying to get through the intersection. Because of that, the driver realizes that he is in the way and tries to back up out of the way of these other vehicles so as not to block them, but doesn't check his rear view mirror. And if we're too close behind him, then that driver is going to reverse straight into us. And that's what happens in this real life clip. So realizes he doesn't have the gap, but now you'll see that he's in the path of these oncoming vehicles, tries to quickly back up because of his haste, doesn't check his rear view mirror, and backs up into the camera. So this type of situation we've got to be fully aware of. Always make sure that if there is such a situation as we see over here, that you've actually allowed the driver ahead that gap to be able to reverse back safely into the side road. But if we go ahead and we fill that gap, then we're going to be in some danger ourselves. This next real life clip is a little bit similar to the previous one, where we've got a vehicle up at the intersection waiting. The camera comes up behind this vehicle, but this vehicle starts reversing for a different reason. Now, note what this reason is. So there we've got a truck, fairly lengthy with its trailer, trying to take the turn. And because of the longer length of such a vehicle, the cab has to take a wider turn through the intersection. So in other words, the cab cannot just take the corner here, otherwise the trajectory of the trailer is going to now start climbing over the sidewalk. So the cab has to come way out across the road here, then take the turn in order for the back of the trailer to make it through the intersection without touching the corner there. So that's the reason why this driver ahead had actually backed up to allow this truck driver that space to take a wider turn. But also, once again, he hadn't checked his rear view mirror, and so backs up into the camera. I do also have a separate page on the website that has a look at trucks and the trajectory that a truck takes when it does a turn, either truck or trailer, and why we need to allow enough space for that. And I'll put a link to that page on the website below as well. Please like, subscribe, and get notified.